Hello there. I'm making yet another one of these videos. I suppose it's not many in comparative terms, but for me it's another one. Because I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but at the same time I'm trying to help people, perhaps stimulate people to thinking differently to how they're currently thinking. So most significantly, the things I want to include on this particular little video, I've had some communication from the ABC Radio National, and one of the producers there, who I've been corresponding with for 2.5 weeks, I suppose, and trying to present some of the information which I think is quite important to be considered, and that we haven't succeeded in connecting until today, which is very exciting that we spoke today. And this particular producer, and I won't mention any names because I'm not comfortable with all the all this sort of technology and so forth. But so this particular producer seemed very very engaged with what I was trying to explain, and having explained it, she said, "Oh, you need to speak with Dr. Norman Swan," who I will mention because he's a very public figure. And I'm like thinking, yes, that's what I need to do. I'd love to talk to Dr. Norman Swan. And I explained that I'd been listening to his daily podcast, CoronaCast, on ABC, and that I'd actually attempted on a couple of occasions to I'd sent in some information and questions. And unfortunately, this may well be my own lack of ability with sending things, but I haven't managed to connect through those those pathways. So this producer gave me a more direct line of communication, phone, and I phoned them and all the rest of it. And hopefully I will have the opportunity to speak more carefully with them about this. But I'm encouraged because it seems to me, from what I could glean from the way the ABC producer dealt with me, that it just seems like new information to them. It doesn't seem this has been presented to them before, and I wonder whether it is something that I couldn't understand, that other people haven't been sort of presenting this type of alternative, or improved theory, better theory of what's happening than the current dogma, because it is a dogma. Covid-19 has become a dogma, and that's a truth. It's not a theory, it's a dogma. And anyway, so I want to talk about something which is not my own work, the work of medical doctors and microbiologists and so forth, and people who've spent their lives doing all this stuff. It's called exosomes, and exosomes, EXOSOMS, something which they've identified as a particularly important extracellular vesicle, like a little. Well, it is actually. This is the crazy thing about it. It's identical, practically identical, with a COVID-19 under electron microscopy. What they describe as COVID-19 has the same physical characteristics, it seems, as an exosome. However, an exosome is actually sent out, if you like, from within a cell, and it's a cell that has responded to some sort of what they call an insult, medical insult, so a pathogen or a toxin or some form of extracellular stimulus, and it said, well, we need to sort of knock this on the head or deal with this, and it sends out these little spiky balls, identical to COVID-19, that make their way through the extracellular material, and then they're received through the cellular membrane of other cells, who then process the information contained within these little vesicles, these information packets, and they generate the necessary response. I don't want to work on about that, but what seems to me to be the case is there's two competing streams of science. There is virology, which has been around for quite some time now, the 1800s through until now, but it became very problematic, as I said before, when Thomas Rivers in 1937 said, well, we can't satisfy Robert Koch's postulates, so we sort of adapted them to some degree, i.e., sidestepped them and decided that we would continue with a lesser, a lesser protocol, a much lower standard, if standard is the way you describe it, of evidence that we could establish our virology on. So, that being the case, now they're saying in 1983, I think it was some Swedish people, they discovered, hey, there's these things called exosomes that your cell produces, and they have a function which is really, it's immunological, it has all these potential applications in medicine to address illnesses and diseases and so forth. And so since the early 1980s, they've been looking at these exosomes as a potential resource, as a potential sort of treatment and a way of correcting disease and illness. However, because they are, they're simply practically identifying, I believe, I'm convinced, on the little information I have, maybe I'm too intuitively convinced, you might say, that they're identifying the same structure, the same protein structure, spiky ball, blah, 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 coronavirus / with a cross through the coronavirus, because I don't believe they're actually, they are coronaviruses, but they are essentially the same thing as an exosome. And the exosome is potentially functioning to the benefit of the cell and it's the body that this cell exists within. So, we could still, because what they describe within the exosome, when they're, I'm not a great, I'll try and put some links, I'll try my best. You have no idea how inept I am at presenting you with the information that I have had the advantage of looking at. And I'm just trying to do my best. But that's the same with the ABC. They want me to send emails, and I'm not very good. I can talk on the phone. I can describe what I think I'm understanding, and I'm hoping that if you can understand what I'm understanding, you might also develop the same interest or desire to at the very least test this dogma. Well, you can't really test a dogma because a dogma is a dogma, but resist the dogma and test the theory. Go behind the dogma and say, we've got a theory that COVID-19 is this virus. However, there's an alternative, and much in terms of the data that's been gathered in terms of all the testing protocol, reverse transcriptase, polymerase, chain reaction, which is never it's not a test, it's not designed to be. But with respect to the anomalies and all the rest of it that occur, and the discrepancies between, the number of cycles they do within the, this theory sorts all that rubbish out, and it shows quite clearly, look, this is the presence of what has been described as the Covid-19 virus is actually the presence of an exosome, which is an immunological response to some sort of, imposition on the body's, homeostasis. It's a bioactive vesicle that's sent out to conduct, a function. Well, it's a useful thing, which is kind of what I was saying. I think I said it initially, but I think what we need to do is push to have this considered. I'm going to try and, with the help of the ABC, hopefully, if I can manage it, have them consider this possibility, because I believe this possibility is more than a mere possibility. I believe it is the actual way out for everybody. That these two, this younger science of exosomes and looking at, evaluating what their potential is and looking at how they can be, and the problem is, you've got the same problem. They're looking at ways they can sort of, commercialise them really. They want to say, we discovered this exosome and this does this and it does. But I think because of that, they're actually sort of keeping a low profile. And virology, on the other hand, may know that, I don't know what's happening. may know that exosomes exist, but they are so focused on their own set of considerations, their own dogma, that they're saying this is real. So there's not the connectivity which needs to be made between these two, effectively parallel, but practically, in terms of what they're dealing with, they're dealing with the identical, structure, extracellular structure. And again, this is to do with the virus thing. The virus is absolutely identical, synonymous with exosomes, which your cell produces for very good reason, to help your body combat some sort of, trouble that's brewing, so to speak. So anyway, that was what I wanted to say, that I think it's really important that we accept that, everyone's prone to make mistakes, especially when there's so much at stake. But at the same time, we have now information that these are not fly-by-nighters. These are peer-reviewed, research papers that are journaled and all the rest of it. But as I say, I think the problem has come about because they exist in the strata of information that they exist within is practically unavailable to the people who operate at the strata of, medical, they're doctors. They're looking for things that this strata of information has established, and so there's a disconnect, and they don't have the information they need. I just think it's a really good situation to be in. We've had a really unique experience in history, and hopefully we can come out the other side of it, with a greater awareness of, how to be more careful and evaluate what's important in life. That's I don't want to keep going on because I can keep going on forever, but that's my current situation. I'm trying to speak with ABC Radio National and get some of this information so they can have a look at it. And I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to say. Bye.